Today we're going to learn about drawings, nets, and other models that have more specific names. So one type of drawing that we're going to start with is called an isometric drawing. And basically, to sum it up, an isometric drawing is just a 3D shape. So the picture down here is what we call an isometric drawing. It's isometric because it shows three perspectives of a 3D figure. So I can see it from the top view, I can see it from the left side, and I can also see it from the front. So we would call that an isometric drawing. What we're going to do is we're going to try to do our own isometric drawing. We're just going to reconstruct this figure on the left in the dot section. So it can get a little overwhelming for some people about where to start. So I usually pick something, I like to outline the shape. I don't worry about all the inside lines and stuff. We can do that later. So I like to start going on a vertical line. So I'm going to start with this piece. Now since it goes straight up and down, I'm also going to go straight up and down. And it doesn't matter where you start this on your dot paper. You have to make sure that you're giving yourself enough room. You don't want to do it on the very edge and not have room. So after I go down once, if I'm outlining this, I would actually have to go down a second time. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is basically going to be like monkey see, monkey do. Whatever the picture does, we do. So in this one, it goes down a little and to the right. So we're going to go down a little and to the right. And connect. It looks like I'm going to have to do that 2 more times. So we're going to do that 2 more times. And then we need to change gears. We're actually going to go up a little and to the right. So we go up and to the right and connect. I'm going to have to do it a second time. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we change gears and we just go straight up. So I'm going to go straight up. This one looks a little tricky, but it's really just going up and to the left. So we're going to go up and to the left and connect. So we're just going to kind of continue that flow until we have the outline constructed here. Okay, so we have the outline of the shape constructed. Believe it or not, the hardest part is over. All you have to do is just go in and make sure everything looks like cubes. You're really just connecting lines, and it might take more than one attempt. If you mess up, you'll see it's messed up. Just go back and erase it and try again. So there you can see we have an isometric drawing. I can see the shape from 3 different perspectives. What we're going to do now is talk about an orthographic drawing. Again, it's pronounced orthographic. And unlike an isometric drawing, an orthographic drawing consists of 3 separate pictures, each representing a different part of an isometric drawing. So we're just going to make a note that it shows 3 sides of a 3D shape individually. And it'll make more sense once we actually do that. So on the left here is what we call an isometric drawing, what we just constructed. What we're going to do is take that isometric, and from that we're going to make an orthographic drawing. So, oops, I need to erase this here. So what we're going to do is we're going to imagine if we're standing in front. So look at the side that's labeled front. If I stood right in front of that, what would I see? That's what we're going to draw. So I would see a rectangle that's looks like it's laying down. And then above that, I would see a square. So that's what it looks like from the front. So you can imagine if you stood very far back, that's what you would see. You wouldn't know which one's coming out further necessarily, but you do know that there's a line here between them. So what we're also going to do is look at it from the top perspective. So if I was in a helicopter and I was looking down at the object, I would see a rectangle, that rectangle, and I would see a square attached to it. So the group of these three drawings, each from a different perspective, is what we call an orthographic drawing. So I always like to describe it as, imagine someone stuck a bomb inside the isometric and blew it into three separate parts. The group of those three parts is what makes an orthographic drawing. The next type of drawing we have is what we call a foundation, and this is used a lot in any kind of architecture or any kind of building construction. So what a foundation shows, basically it's a drawing that shows, I'll put outlines, the base of a figure, but it also shows the height of each piece. So we'll say, while showing the height of each piece. Again, with drawings, it makes more sense once you see it actually done. So again, we're going to take the same isometric drawing that we had before, and from that we're going to make a foundation drawing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to outline what the bottom would look like. So if it helps to think of the top instead, then think, okay, I'm going to draw what the top looks like. So that's what it looked like from the top. Now, since the shape is constructed of cubes, but there's no line in the middle here because they're the same height, we're just going to put a dashed line. A dashed line means that it's invisible and you can't see it, but it helps us think. So what we're going to do is write down how many cubes high would each of those pieces be. So for this part, like this is 1 cube high, so I'm going to put a 1 in here. And the second block is also 1 cube high. That's why we don't see necessarily a line between them, because they're perfectly lined up, and apparently they didn't want the line between them. The next cube, if you count them here, there's 1 and 2. It's 2 blocks high. So this drawing is itself a foundation. So what gives a foundation away is it basically has numbers and shapes in it. So the numbers kind of tell you it's a foundation. The last figure we have is what we call a net, and most people have seen a net before. A net is a shape that can be folded to make a 3D structure. So if we look down to this figure, imagine if you started to fold that shape along the lines. It would eventually fold into a perfect cube. So this tends to happen if you ever get like a gift box and it's flattened, you could fold it up and make it into a regular box. So we call that a net. So what we're going to do is kind of imagine if I did go ahead and fold these, what sides would be opposite of each other. So imagine that I take A and I just fold it upwards, and I do the same thing with C. They are going to be opposite of each other. We're just going to write that A is opposite of C. Now if I kept folding and I folded B up, B is going to be what we would say the right side of the box. And then if I kept on folding, E would end up being the top. So it's safe to say that E and B are opposite sides. One is the bottom and one is the top. So that would have to leave us with D and F. Now for some people it's very easy to visualize this, and for others it's not so easy. So if you find yourself struggling with the visualization process, then the best thing you can do is to actually make a net. Just draw it on a piece of paper, cut it out, and then fold along the lines, and it'll be very clear to you after that. So just for an example, we're going to go ahead and draw a net of the square pyramid that we see, and it asks us to label the dimensions. So we're going to have to label 10 and 8 accordingly. So if I were to cut a hole through the top here and peel back all the triangle sides, what I would have is I'd have a square base with the dimensions of 8. I would have 4 different triangles attached to that. The triangle has legs of 10. And if I decide to fold this back up, I would get this figure right here. So we just constructed a net.